Tucked away in a beautiful section of North Attleboro, there was a magical place that served as a refuge for many young girls. Operated by my Nana, Ruth Rind, Camp Shady Pines hosted Girl Scouts of all ages from the town and area communities. The land was special to all those who visited, but even more so to our family. We often gathered to look back at that special place.
As we walk through the camp, although the buildings aren't there physically, we can look and see the image of them in essence of where they were. And we know where the boundaries are. We joke about, oh no, the end of the porch was here.
I know,
it was not there. It's like, we joke about,
For decades, Camp Shady Pines hosted thousands of Girl Scouts during the summer months. Ironically, the land was authorized for use as a camp in the dead of winter. Nancy Campbell is the curator of the Falls Fire Barn Museum, the town's historical depository.
And in February of 1941, the Girl Scout committee came and approved the camp, and they were all they could see, they were in the middle of snow, 4 inches of snow, but they approved having the camp. And in June, they started building of the camp.
She knew about the property from her friend Harry and Beatrice Fisher. She spoke to them to get a long-term lease, like $1 a year, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, when Harry Fisher took over the property and when they actually owned the Girl Scouts, they added 300 trees around the property to have it more of a camp feel to it.
Nana had her camp. The only question was what to call it.
All the girls got together and tried to decide what was best name, and they chose Shady Pines as the name of the camp.
Within 2 years, additional buildings were added with money from cookie sales. Nana's vision was becoming reality.
However she laid it out was perfect, because when you pulled into the camp, on the right-hand side, as you're coming up the hill, there was a place called the Saradera House, and that's where my mother was the nurse of the Saradera House. And then as you drive further on, you would come to the main lodge. There was a couple bedrooms.
It evolved. Because the original one was smaller, much smaller.
Yeah,
two fireplaces. It started out small.
And that little porch where she spent
sleeping
a lot
porch,
of
right.
time.
It was
like her admin
That's where
area.
she slept over, and a little office.
Right.
And
That was a
kitchen.
large building, because we would have Thanksgiving dinner, and sometimes it'd be 40, 50 people there in that main lodge.
And by 1943, they were able to add electricity, and the person in charge at the time of the electric department was Mr. Sherman, and he installed the electricity in the camp.
No summer camp would be complete, however, without a place to cool off on a hot summer day.
At the beginning, they didn't have much of a swimming hole or anything, and swimming was important. So what the Girl Scouts and the Brownies had to do was walk through this path filled with snakes and stuff to go down to this small, shallow stream and to try to learn a little bit to cool off and to learn a little bit about swimming.
Doris Legg is a former camp counselor and has fond memories of the swimming hole.
Towards the end, we had a pool there because they couldn't swim in the river coming through. But it was always swam in. And my grandfather owned all the land across the street from Camp Shady Pines. And his cows went all over and went down into the river and swam there.
Kat Browning is a former scout and remembers swimming at the camp.
Oh, we used to swim in all parts of the river, not just down the hill from the main lodge where the regular swimming hole was, where we learned to swim. The river actually snaked all through Shady Pines. There was sandy whirlpool areas where you could swim down by Huntsbridge Road, down by Sulia's pig farm.
We used to fill sandbags and sandbag the river up. It was Abbott Run River. And so they would have a small swim area. And she got one of the local contractors to come down. I believe it was Cavalieri.
I think it was Kurt Torres.
And they dammed it up. And they trenched out a beautiful swimming spot with a dock, with a deck and a diving board.
They dredged it so it was
each
deeper.
had, it had different levels. like beginners and medium
Beginners and
and
intermediate,
advancement. I can still
advanced
picture
swimmers.
Billy and Timmy's mother, the swim instructor, swimming underwater. She was so
But there were trees here.
graceful.
There were trees here before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She saw an area, said, let's get rid of these trees and relocate the river.
And made a whole-
reroute the river.
They rewrote
It's
the river.
unthinkable today.
Yeah.
My brother Bill visited the site to show the magnitude of the project.
My grandmother got rid of all the trees in this alleyway here, so to speak, pulled up all the trees, dredged it all out, and all this area on the left, where it's all grown, was absolutely bare. It was like a beach. So there was this tree here, none of that stuff was here 45 years ago. So it looked like an odd, like what the heck is a beach doing here? It was pristine from the water all the way back about 35, 40 feet was absolute sand.
Although activities varied daily, one constant was daily circle.
Every morning, what they would do is, it was very important to all go around the flag and put the flag up and the Pledge of Allegiance. And in every Girl Scout camp, putting up of the flagpole was the most important thing.
The girls would go out there and they would say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and that would start
would
the whole
sing.
day, and they would sing, and it was.
We would have opening ceremony with the flags around the flagpole. From there, we'd go to our individual units. We would do all kinds of crafts, make sit-upons, make dish cloth washing bags, ditty bags, we used to call them.
Legg showed North TV's Devon Dare a product from one of those sessions.
When they did arts and crafts, one of my girls made this out of noodles, alphabetical noodles.
The Camp Shady Pines.
Camp Shady Pines. And some of the noodles have fallen off, but of course it's got to be 40-something years old. So
That's awesome that you still keep all of that.
just something I had put away, you know, and just never took it out once before and wore it, and the kids were amazed that I still have that.
An abandoned railroad line bordered one side of the property and secluded the camp from Chomao Golf Course. Nana used the tracks for an activity that would probably now be considered politically incorrect.
Periodically, the girls would
Hobo
get
day, that's when
the
you
hobo
walk the
day,
rails,
dress up like
right?
hobos,
Yeah.
and a stick with a bag, and they just walk on the tracks.
Oh,
Because
wow.
there's no
To
worry
the
about a
pig
train
farm.
coming.
That's when we went to the pig farm,
The scenic route. I sure did.
which was an exciting event.
I think it's nice you can see the golf course from here. Could never do that years ago because the railroad tracks were right there. The railroad tracks were elevated, so you couldn't see that. It gave a bit of mystery to what was on the other side. We knew it was a golf course, but it added a little more privacy for us, for the camp, so to speak. And they'd go over to the railroad tracks, either go to the left and walk a considerable distance, or go to the right and walk a distance on the tracks. And there's a pretty good-sized train trestle over here that goes over the Abbott Run River. So you'd be walking over the railroad ties and looking straight down. I mean, it's not really high, but it seems that when you're only 3 or 4 feet high yourself.
They could walk on the tracks and stuff, and would go down to where the old tracks were and come back on Huntsbridge Road. And you dress up and you put your lunch in a stick over your shoulder, and that was your hobo.
A short walk down the tracks brought the campers to Sulia's Pig Farm, and another favorite of camp life.
For a number of years, we used to have a grease pig contest. We'd take a couple of piglets and grease them up with Vaseline, and we would team up taking turns trying to tackle the pig and hold the pig down. And I think the pigs enjoyed it as much as we did.
But in the summertime, if the wind was coming from
it was
Sully's
like you were sitting
to
there.
camp, Sully's was a large pig farm that was just beyond one of the boundaries of the camp. And it was a hot summer day, and the wind was coming this way. It was like, it made you involuntary gag. It was that strong.
Looking back at it now, was it a coincidence that a camp with gates originating from the town's theater ended every session with a theatrical production?
So this whole flat area here was a bit of a stage of sorts. And these trees here, certainly that one, had a big pole attached to it and a curtain, a giant curtain. And there were lights up, built in up there for illumination and whatnot. So much growth has come in over the years, but if you turn around and visualize it without this low growth, it was kind of a cool place. So kids would be doing their routines here, whatever they play, and their parents would be watching from up there. It's really kind of cool. Oh, you can see some of the leftover electrical units up here on this tree. See this junction box? Now, obviously there was a pole that came down and it just got gobbled up by the tree.
We would put on different plays at the end of 2-week sessions. So we'd do our acting classes.
All year long, the Girl Scouts would practice a certain arts. What was it? Theater. It was a theater hour or something, wasn't it?
Yes.
And at the end of the year, they would have a production. Patty was Tinkerbell.
You were Tinkerbell.
Oh, Patty was. And they flew her across. They put a wire up there and she flew across.
They put on The Sound of Music at the camp. And Deb Lawson is the tall girl here. And then all the others is Nancy Pierce, one of the Parks girls. And this little one on the end is my daughter, Cindy. And they took the drapes out of the main lodge, my Cindy thinks, and made all these dresses so it would be authentic. And then after they put it on at the camp and it went over so well, they were invited to the King Philip in Rentham to go on stage and put it on again. And she doesn't remember who they did it for, but they went up to Rentham and did it again.
It was pretty clever. I can't remember, what are the shows that they put on?
Wizard of Oz.
Sound of Music.
Wizard of Oz. I remember the Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
So the parents would come and sit on the hill, and at the end of the summer, they would put on a show for them. It was really well
Sound of
done.
Music.
It was really well
Lots.
done. Yeah.
And it was a
Bunch of great
perfect
things.
It was a perfect amphitheater for it. Yeah. Now that's overgrown
Now
again.
there's
So
just
you can
that
see,
big tree
visualize.
there.
The big tree's still there.
The play concluded each 2-week session. It was time for the girls to go back to their normal lives. For everyone associated with the camp, that meant the reality of life during a difficult era.
In the 60s and 70s, all hell's breaking loose societally in DC and all over major cities, and Vietnam War protests and so on.
Right.
None of that really seemed to matter at Camp Shady Pines. I mean, they were children. They were children, and not only that, but these children were visually seeing women in action getting the job done without men.
There was a lot of order. And I think from kids, some of us came from disorderly homes.
Sure.
And we came to camp and
Yeah,
it
some
was,
structure.
there was order and structure
Yeah.
and it was dependable and
Fun.
it was a fun,
Yeah.
wonderful, safe place to be.
The girls would come in to me in the morning and we'd set up our schedule for the day, and then I saw that they got through their schedule for the day and that everybody was taken care of, and we would have some free time. We might go on a hike. You had segments where you did waterfront and where you did story time, and you might have that craft time. So you always had a segment of something to do. It was a scheduled, fun day.
Camp Shady Pines was set up for Girl Scouts. Nana did allow boys' use of the camp, but it came at a price. Al Kandarian was a former Boy Scout who later became a Scout leader.
We would go up there on at least once a year, and what we did was she would give us a project to do, clean brush out of one area or fix something or repair. So the boys on the weekend trip did something to enhance the value of the camp and make it helpful for others to come along. We would do the project when I was a kid doing the projects, and then when I was an adult leader, she would tell us what needed to be done. it got to a point, quite honestly, in the late 60s where, I mean, early on we were cutting down trees and cutting down shrubs. We were just doing cleanup and fixing. The camp was immaculate.
Couldn't walk over here.
Coming
She'd
forward.
have a guy come in and take down all those dead branches. And if you came over here, your job was picking up the twigs.
We, of course, as boys, because our mothers worked there, and there wasn't any daycare back there, my grandmother would put us all to work, and I mean, you didn't stop.
Reluctantly.
I used to grab my fishing pole and go out
Yeah.
to the river, and to this day I could hear my grandmother yell, "Bobby, Bobby," and she would have us grab any kind of sticks, pine cones, tie them in a thing, and put them by the road, and then the truck would come and pick them up.
Yes, we all worked at the camp, but we had fun as well.
We were over there moving picnic tables and mattresses and doing repair work and playing hide and go seek and
It was
fishing,
fun work.
skiing and sledding and
Oh
whatnot.
no, we had our fun.
We had our
Fun work.
We used to take the trays.
Taking trays, that's what
Take
Oh my
the
God.
trays and they have
Cafeteria
Cafeteria
trays
trays to go slide down the hill.
slide down the hill.
in the summertime
You go-
and the wintertime. Because of the pine needles, they slide well on the pine needles.
Times changed, and with it, the end of the camp. When? None of us know for sure, but if you think Nana was sentimental, you'd be wrong.
I think one of the things I learned about Nana was she was very pragmatic about the ultimate demise of camp. She never really got too
No.
emotional about it.
No.
She would drive the bulldozer if she had the choice to
Oh,
demolish
yeah.
those buildings, even though she and her peers built many of the buildings themselves, like the stone fireplace.
Yeah.
The stones and the fire were gathered from her girlfriends and their husbands, but she was not worried about the buildings ultimately being demolished. And I recall being with her. Oh, they've outlived their usefulness. They got to go. I do remember walking down here as these little saplings started to appear when I was probably in my early 20s with my grandmother. Now in my early 20s, she'd be in her early 70s, and I said, you really need to pull these up, because if we don't pull these up now, it's all going to get grown over. And she didn't seem to really care, so I don't have time for that, and let it happen. She was ambivalent about it.
Camp Shady Pines has been closed for decades, but the impact it had and the memories continue.
Without that, what would the girls have done? They didn't have a social impact place to go and a community thing to do. And this gave them a safe place to be, a fun place to be, and very much loved.
My daughter Cindy often talks about camp, memories of camp. And Carol Kirby, Mike Kirby's wife, one of her best friends from Girl Scouts.
Wow, really?
And they still keep in touch to this day and get together once in a while, and a whole bunch of them. I can't name all the names that come to mind of the kids of that era that grew up together and still stay in touch.
In an age now of helicopter parents where kids are so hovered over and watched, I just look back on the freedom that we all had, even the campers, but especially to run and go and swim and be out. We could do anything. We had knives. We had knives. Go and whittle a stick. Okay, here's a hatchet. Go and chop some wood. Okay, go and lash this lean-to because we need something for whatever.
Well, you're right, clean them trees.
And so you could do all of these
I
things.
still stack my firewood,
Yes.
kindling
Yes.
to the immediate.
How about cooking with a
You have to line 'em up.
Well, cooking with a reflector oven.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
We could survive.
Right.
Great leaders for the kids. Made a big impact on the girls of that age group, that 7th to high school age group that needed that. So if without Shady Pines, they wouldn't have had it. There was no other place.
Hundreds of girls that she was able to influence went on to influence everybody else who influenced other people and other people and other people. I think her influence expanded like a huge circle throughout the years. There's no telling what her influence did to touch people in all walks of life.
And my oldest daughter got into swimming at camp and became a lifeguard. Went to work for the state when they opened Spatcher Pool as a lifeguard. Worked for Parks and Recreations in Massachusetts as a lifeguard. Goes up, met the director of Red Cross in Attleboro when she was 18. He had a camp up in Maine. She went there once a year for a week to teach lifeguarding to people from all over the world that came to this special camp. And she did that and did it up to this year when, I won't say how old she is, but she just retired from it this year. And she's done that every year since scouting. You know, she's gone for lifeguarding. And if it hadn't been for scouting, she'd have probably never learned lifeguarding.
I got my counselor and leader in training there. And that gave me a boost up to nursing school, leadership skills, listening skills, caring skills. I think it really pushed me towards that avenue. I liked caring for animals, I liked caring for people, and I think it gave me a natural direction to go into.
There are a lot of people, only a few that are here, but Nana has touched so many people over the years.
As you can tell, not only was the camp special, Nana was as well.
In your lifetime, you meet certain people that you never forget in business and in your personal life, in your family life. You got an Uncle Harry you love. For some reason, he's your favorite. Now, what was my connection to Miss Rind? Absolutely nothing. I was a boy at the camp, and then I was the leader taking boys to the camp. But it would be, I can remember going to some evening where she was presented some award or something. And I can remember thinking then, this is many years ago now, how deserving that was. So here we are all these years later, and we're still talking about Miss Rind.
Oh, I think she had a big impact. You talk to anybody in the age group of my daughters that went to camp, and they'll tell you that she was such a loving person and caring person to all of them, and her daughters were. You know, the nurse was, you know, there and everything. So everybody loved her, and everybody loved her family.
But the values of life, it was really taught to us.
Absolutely.
And, you know, wanting to do things for other people, and especially being a hard worker. And there was just so many good things to
work
it.
ethic was really
As we've gotten older, we realized that there was a lot of stuff going on in our personal lives behind the scenes that made Ruth Rind even more extraordinary, that she could juggle all these other issues at home and still carry on at Camp Shady Pine and so on. So I've always admired her, the way she was able to cope with a lot of life's challenges, shall we say, and she was always a very helpful person. That there was a level of strength that is almost unimaginable to some people. It's extraordinary what she persevered behind the scenes.
Ruth was a great lady. You could, she helped more children in this town than we'll ever know about. Because if you couldn't afford to go, you went anyway.
She was very much a big proponent of, if some little kid couldn't afford to go to camp, they came anyway, and she made it happen. And
she developed people's natural talent. She saw in people probably what maybe nobody else saw, and encouraged that.
The Plymouth Bay Girl Scout Council sold the land to the town of North Attleboro in 1986. On December 5th, 1999, the town paid tribute to Nana by naming the property the Ruth Rind Recreation Area.
As long as somebody goes to that field, they'll see what it was, and the people that remember it will always talk about it. And as long as the fields are there and the kids are coming, I know Ruth would be really happy that it's still working out nice.
Nana passed away on August 22nd, 2002. at the age of 103. Shady pines, the camp of all my dreams, always in my memory it seems. Down by ebb it runs so blue. It's a Girl Scout rendezvous. And in the evening stars come out to shine, while the Girl Scouts sing among the pines, voices ringing out so clear, songs of camp so dear.